Section 1. We must respect the will of the individual. Take it easy. I can assure you that everything will turn out fine. Let go of your negative outlook on life. Always maintain a positive attitude. You should be fair to everyone regardless of national origin, gender, or creed. Equality is guaranteed by the Constitution. He leaned against the pillar and gazed at the Statue of Liberty. A woman passed by me giving off a subtle scent of perfume. It reminded me of my ex-girlfriend. Natto smells awful but tastes terrific. I'm soaked with sweat.
Stand back! You stink! Take a shower. Section 2. Bob was so beside himself that he could scarcely tell fact from fiction. His new novel, which combines prose with his gift for poetry, is going to be published. An up-to-date edition of the encyclopedia will come out next month. Ms. Yamada translated the fascinating fairy tale into plain Japanese. The following passage is quoted from a well-known fable. Are you familiar with contemporary literature?
I know next to nothing about it.
At times, I confuse curve with carve. Don't be shy. Your pronunciation is more or less correct. This article contains tips for those who are eager to increase their vocabulary. His latest works are on display at the City Hall. They are fabulous beyond description. Could you move over a little?
Oh, sorry. I didn't realize I was taking up so much space.
What's this ugly object?
This is a piece of abstract art. Section 3. I begged Richie to lend me $100, but he shook his head saying, I'm broke too. I'm apt to buy things on impulse whenever something is on sale.
So am I.
As it is, ordinary people cannot afford to purchase such luxuries. As we anticipated, the unemployment rate has risen 3 quarters in a row. I have to cut down on my expenses, so from now on, I'm going to keep track of them on a daily basis. In any case, the union has to compromise to a certain extent. Competent mechanics are in great demand, so they earn decent wages. The President announced a concrete plan to carry out welfare reform. His policy will no doubt lead to dismal consequences. It needs a thorough review. It goes without saying that the aging of society is inevitable. Please take a look at this chart. It indicates that juvenile delinquency is on the increase at an alarming rate. In many business districts, there are a lot of vacant lots which have been for sale for years. The population density in the metropolis is gradually decreasing. In all likelihood, the birth rate will continue to decline steadily for years to come.
Section 4. The power plant supplies the remote county with electricity. You are not allowed to operate this device without permission. In fact, the inhabitants have been exposed to radiation. One cannot emphasize too much the potential danger of nuclear energy. For years, the press overlooked the problem, but now, if anything, they are making too much of it. As well as cultivating grain, the farmer runs a grocery store. The Research Institute was established in the late 1960s. Why don't you consult Starr in person? He's by far the most prominent attorney around here. I'll write it down just in case, because I have a bad memory. The lawyer recommended that his client take legal action against the insurance company.
Section 5. They are entitled to be compensated for their injuries. So far, no less than 200 people have died of the flu epidemic. The effect of those pills is intense but brief. He has a habit of biting his nails. It's absolutely disgusting. My grandma strained her back when she bent down to hug my son. If you have a stiff neck, try an herbal remedy. Medical breakthroughs have brought about great benefits for humanity as a whole. We can't apply cloning techniques to cattle, let alone human beings. It's forbidden. Whales are classified as mammals. The theory of evolution is beyond the reach of my imagination. The biologist is proud of his historic discovery and doesn't mind boasting about it. On ethical grounds, they are opposed to so-called gene therapy. The initial symptoms of the disease are fever and a sore throat. The structure of the brain is complex. Owing to illness, some representatives were absent from the annual conference. Little by little, my son-in-law is recovering from stomach cancer, and now he is in good spirits. This is fake, isn't it?
Hey, it's a genuine antique.
No way.
Section 6. Anything else?
That's it.
For here or to go?
To go.
How much is this rug?
$100 including tax.
Okay, I'll take it. I don't think those pants look good on you. Try these on. They're really in now. He got out of the cab in haste, saying, "Keep the change." Delivery service is available to our customers for a slight extra charge.
It's on me.
No, you treat me every time we eat out.
Well, okay. Let's split the check then.
While I was hanging out at the mall, I ran into Ken. I was short of cash, so I withdrew the $100 that I had deposited in my bank account last week. On her way home, she was robbed of her purse. That's odd. Tell me how it happened.
I'll explain it to you later.
My parents gave me a 6 p.m. curfew as a punishment because I broke my promise. As the proverb goes, the end justifies the means. Now that I've found that there's no one to turn to, I'll have to stand on my own 2 feet.
Section 7. The chairman cut me off, saying, "Time to wind things up. Let's take a vote." We exchanged frank opinions in the meeting, but consensus is yet to be reached regarding this matter.
Do you agree or disagree with him?
I'm on his side. Strictly speaking, his view differs somewhat from mine. Could you go over it again? I couldn't make out what you were getting at. No one backed me up at first, but eventually I talked everyone into going along with my plan. I admire your perseverance, courage, and wisdom.
You flatter me.
In making a decision, I rely not on logic, but on instinct. He came up with an ingenious, sensible solution and immediately put it into practice. From an objective viewpoint, the former is inferior to the latter. Your idea sounds marvelous in theory, yet I don't think it will work in practice. We expected him to defeat his opponent, but he failed to live up to our expectations. Ironically, despite their best endeavors, their mission resulted in complete failure. Her genius makes up for her lack of first-hand experience. She possesses a great capacity for overcoming any obstacle. Without your solid support, the deal would have fallen through. I'm grateful to you.
Section 8. Bringing flammable items into the cabin is prohibited. Our flight to Vienna was delayed on account of a minor accident. The plane blew up and plunged into the ocean, killing all the people on board. They are working around the clock, looking into the cause of the crash. Unfortunately, few passengers survive the catastrophe. The aviation expert analyzed the statistics in detail. On behalf of all the staff, I'd like to express our sympathy for the victims. In a sense, he is to blame for the disaster. The vehicles are inspected for defects every 3 months.
Section 9. I was amazed to see that our utility bills came to so much. Turn the faucet off, Mom yelled in a rage. Tighten the lid so the food doesn't go bad. Can I borrow your scissors?
Sure, here you are.
You can substitute some transparent glue for a needle and thread. I dyed this fabric and it shrank. I'm getting rid of this leather jacket because it's worn out at the elbows. Add some flour to the mixture and stir it until it becomes thick.
What should we do with the leftovers?
Keep them in the fridge for now. I'll heat them in the microwave later. I could have laid out all that money on a new PC, but on second thought I decided to put some aside for a rainy day. A cell phone has become something of a necessity, and I can't do without one. No sooner had I sat back and relaxed than my wife asked me to do the chores. She laid the baby down and lay down beside him.
Section 10. Put this stuff away. It's in the way. When the kids made believe they were dinosaurs, they were scolded by their mother. After he bumped into the shelf, the priceless china fell and shattered into fragments. Can you keep an eye on my kids for a while? I need to pick up Ken.
No problem.
Our neighbor told us off for making a mess in his yard. Dolly resembles her big sister in every way. You can't tell them apart. As a rule, twins have a lot in common. I'm tired of doing the dishes, doing the laundry, and so on. My favorite pastime is strolling along the shore. It's pleasant. I'm exhausted. Let's take a break in the shade.
Why not?
Bob, this vending machine is out of order.
Oh no! I'm dying of thirst.
He fainted with hunger and fatigue, but came to after a while.
Section 11. The auditorium was empty except for a single piece of furniture. Any apartment will do as long as the rent is low. I'm not particular about it. His 60-year-old cousin inherited a piece of real estate by a lake. So much for small talk. Let's get down to business. Lucy resented the aggressive salesman trying to make her sign the contract. There are a number of factors discouraging us from investing in stocks. Japan imports various raw materials and exports manufactured goods. In the course of its economic development, Japan has abandoned its traditional values. The world is faced with an unprecedented crisis. In short, the purpose of the regulations is to protect domestic industries. In order to keep up its competitiveness in the world, Japan must undertake sweeping deregulation in earnest.
Section 12. We cannot turn our backs on desperate people who are at risk. The Parliament decided to provide developing countries with financial aid. Some say the British monarchy should be abolished. What do you think? They sought shelter from the attack, but found no place to hide. There's little prospect that the two countries will make significant progress in disarmament. The negotiations are underway. Before long, they will enter a crucial phase. The slaves were anxious to alter their destinies. The aristocrats abused their privileges to their heart's content. The revolution in itself bore no fruit, after all.
Section 13. Bob cut in on our conversation saying, "I'm against it," but everybody ignored him. We skipped his turn on purpose. He saw someone being bullied, but he turned a blind eye. When Nick and I cheated on an exam, I was suspended from school. As for Nick, he got away with it. They are hostile to Richard because they are jealous of his wealth and status.
I hate him. He behaves as if he were somebody.
In spite of our compliments, he frowned and turned away. He was so rude. He claimed that the enormous property was at his disposal. The more stubborn you are, the more isolated you become. Don't beat around the bush. What am I supposed to do?
Just wait and see. Time will tell. Section 14. Please hand in your assignment via email no later than 5 p.m. on June 10th. Joe is anything but diligent. That's why he flunked math again. His thesis doesn't make sense. To begin with, its theme is obscure. His essay was concise and to the point. How are you going to deal with this complicated problem?
Leave it to me. It's a piece of cake.
Nick, I want you to look this over before I turn it in.
Sorry, but I have my hands full right now.
What if I don't meet the deadline?
I bet he'll get mad at you.
Your summary leaves nothing to be desired, apart from the terrible handwriting. You ought to think over whether the premise is valid or not. Above all, scientific terms call for precise definitions.
Section 15. First of all, learn the formula by heart. To calculate the volume, multiply the length by the width by the depth. Tiny cracks were found in the bottom of the barrel. This chapter will focus on the concepts of geometry. Phil is much more interested in academic subjects than in practical skills.
Something's gone wrong with this microscope. I need to have it repaired.
Let me see it. Maybe I can fix it.
What is an instrument?
For instance, a gauge, such as a thermometer or a barometer. The minute particles are barely visible to the naked eye. Muscle tissue consists of a vast number of cells. This substance is mostly composed of hydrogen and oxygen. The exact temperature is 22.68 degrees Celsius.
Section 16. Naomi likes to show off her perfect figure. I wish I were thin like her. I envy her.
You could go on a diet. I fell in love with Naomi at first sight. 3 months later, I took a chance and proposed to her, but she turned me down.
I met the man by chance. He's gentle and smart. What's more, he's single. His nephew was brought up to be modest and considerate. I introduced Bob to my folks, and they took to him at once. People should be judged not so much by how they look as by who they are. It's not your title that counts, that's for sure, exclaimed Bob. As a self-made man put it, a man of vision will make good in the end. Keep in mind that youth is not eternal.
Section 17. I can't figure out why on earth everybody feels so much contempt for Bob. I can't help laughing at him because he keeps on making stupid mistakes. He'd be the last person to learn his lesson. To make matters worse, he isn't even conscious of annoying us. Since I was in a hurry, I put my gloves on inside out by mistake. Dave is fat and clumsy. When he leaped over the shallow stream, he stumbled and twisted his ankle. I'm scared of heights.
You're a coward.
The passive man seldom, if ever, expresses himself in public. Nick convinced me that all superstitions are irrational. I tremble with fear at the thought of an injection. Since Bob is lazy at heart, he frequently neglects his duties. While Bob was at work, Jennifer was at home absorbed in silly soap operas. Bob likes cartoons, but I don't think much of them. As a matter of fact, they're boring.
Section 18. It occurred to me that he was holding something back because he wouldn't look me in the eye. When her patience gave out, she grabbed his collar and swore at him. I must admit, we quarrel every now and then, but generally we're on good terms with each other.
Do you mind if I stop by your house?
No, not at all. Be my guest. Hold on, I'll be right back. Don't hang up. I can't put you up. For one thing, my dad drops in on me from time to time. While Jennifer was standing still, Bob was pacing back and forth along the sidewalk.
Let's make up, Lisa.
Stop taking me for granted. We're through for good this time. I mean it.
Come on. Don't get so emotional, Lisa. I didn't mean to hurt you. Let's talk it over.
You betrayed me.
Please forgive me. How can I make it up to you?
I'll get even. You should confess your sins rather than conceal them. Keep your word, otherwise you'll end up losing face. Bob sticks to his moral principles and believes that honesty pays off in the long run. Cheer up! You couldn't help it.
I did my best.
I know. Don't dwell on the past. You can start over.
Section 19. Jane, please do me a favor and give me a ride to Times Square.
I wish I could, but I'm tied up right now.
As usual, Mike turned up on time. He's very punctual. The other day, I ran out of gas in the middle of a busy interstate. A truck driving ahead of me skidded, turned over, and scattered its load all over the road. He recalled that a collision had been avoided by sheer luck. In case of an emergency, get in touch with my agent right away. Jane, where are we heading?
I think we're lost. We went in the wrong direction.
Damn, pull over. My rusty Ford broke down, obstructing the intersection. There are so many fine scratches and dents on its surface, it's no use polishing it. Hey, we're stuck in a traffic jam.
Chill out, Joe. Let's take a shortcut. We'll get there in time.
I've got a flat tire. Can you give me a hand?
I'd be glad to.
The ambulance went out of control and came close to running over a pedestrian.
Section 20. He contends that primitive life once existed on Mars. The crew is busy preparing for the voyage into outer space. They conducted a series of experiments under zero gravity. Many astronomers assume that the universe will expand infinitely. The astronauts were greeted with spontaneous applause. A fund was set up with a view to preserving our endangered planet. The massive flood paralyzed the local transportation network. The equator divides the globe into two hemispheres. I think it's cruel to trap animals for fur coats. The organization plays a principal role in wildlife conservation. Many fragile species are on the verge of extinction. The prolonged drought did severe damage to the crops. Tropical rainforests are quickly disappearing on a global scale. In part, it's due to acid rain. It is said that global warming is directly related to carbon dioxide emissions. The destruction of the ozone layer affects the environment. The committee called on all nations to work side by side to curb air pollution. A satellite was launched into orbit to monitor melting glaciers.
Section 21. The ecologist has warned us time and again that petroleum is not only a blessing but also a curse. The continent is abundant in fossil fuels. The region is relatively rich in mineral resources. Wheat accounts for approximately 2/3 of agricultural production in the area. Fertile soil is indispensable for a good harvest. A humid climate is characteristic of the peninsula. The active volcano erupts at regular intervals. The Panama Canal connects the Atlantic with the Pacific. The geographical features here are similar to those of our prefecture. More often than not, famine is accompanied by plague. A devastating earthquake hit the state capital, leaving tens of thousands of residents homeless. Watch out! The ceiling is giving way. The weather forecast says the typhoon is likely to accelerate and approach the coast. It's still up in the air whether the game will be called off or not.
So what? It makes no difference to me.
It's foggy, isn't it?
It sure is, but chances are it'll clear up later on. Section 22. For the most part, modernization is identified with westernization. Urban culture appears to be attractive to many people, in particular to younger people. AI stands for artificial intelligence. Household appliances are becoming more convenient day by day. My income is not adequate to provide for my family of 4, but we have to make the best of it. The popularity of a website depends on its content. You've got to keep up with it. Once you fall behind, it's hard to catch up. As technology rapidly advances, it's tough to keep pace with it. More and more people are rushing to make use of the interactive nature of the medium. Innovation has something to do with the ability to notice unusual phenomena. A bunch of other companies are imitating our excellent methods. The once desolate valley was transformed into a thriving hub of high-tech business. Although there's still plenty of room for improvement, his invention is superior to conventional equipment in every respect. The strength of the firm is attributed to its unique and future-oriented strategies. Sony has integrated a wide range of functions into this cool gadget. It's catching on from coast to coast. This tool comes in handy, so I always keep it close at hand. In general, consumers prefer quantity to quality.
It's the other way around today. Section 23. Obviously, the advertisement is aimed at teenagers. The factory now under construction will assemble 1,000 VCR units per day. Efficient machinery replaced manual labor. In those days, the gigantic corporation had a virtual monopoly over internal commerce. With restrictions removed, thousands of new enterprises have come into being. As a result of his ridiculous venture, he is in danger of going bankrupt. Compared to the previous year, business is looking up in terms of sales. However, we haven't made any profit yet. I'm going to be transferred to an overseas branch.
Oh, I'll miss you. Please drop me a line.
While he was away on business, his wife gave birth to a baby boy.
Section 24. Apparently, Nick wasn't willing to take on the task because it would just add to his burdens. Bob had intended to take her out tonight, but he had to work overtime. Please estimate the losses by Friday at the latest.
I'll manage it somehow.
Nick, I'm counting on you.
Okay, I'll see to it.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Don't mention it.
He pretends to be enthusiastic when his boss is around. He got promoted at the expense of his colleagues. He should be ashamed of himself. As the recession set in, temporary employees were laid off one after another. Nowadays, many people are out of work against their will. Who is responsible for that? I've gotten pessimistic, and I'm worried about something I would never have been concerned about before. Today, even white-collar workers are confronted with great hardships. The authorities are striving in vain to stabilize the currency. We've come to the conclusion that nothing is more urgent than reducing Japan's huge deficit.
Section 25. The questionnaires were distributed at random. All you have to do is fill in the blanks below. Please print in black or blue ink. In addition to a 10% discount, you can pick out an optional excursion for free. Round-trip fares to each destination are as follows. Don't forget to confirm your reservation in advance.
I won't.
Be sure to check in at least 45 minutes prior to departure time. I attached my name tag to my baggage, but it soon came off. On average, these packages weigh 2 pounds. This plastic garbage bag is free of hazardous chemicals. This flashlight is getting dim. It needs new batteries.
Section 26. Excuse me, how often do the shuttle buses run to downtown New York? The motel can accommodate as many as 400 guests. This suite is 3 times larger than my condominium. Littering in this facility is subject to a maximum fine of $500. That restaurant is always packed. We'd better make a reservation beforehand. Sorry to interrupt your meal, but I'd like a word with you in private.
Can I get back to you later?
The cook was astonished at his incredible appetite. What's going on down there? I'm curious.
I have no idea.
Excited fans were hanging around the rear exit, hoping to catch a glimpse of Michael. On encountering the celebrity, they asked for his autograph.
Section 27. Whenever I go abroad, I suffer from jet lag and diarrhea. I feel sort of dizzy and I feel like throwing up.
You look pale.
Take some aspirin. It will cure you of your headache in no time. I'm afraid I'm coming down with something.
You should take a day off.
Some of the ingredients in this beverage are harmful, especially if you're pregnant. Good nutrition is vital for an infant's growth. Moderate exercise stimulates the circulation of the blood. My physician advised me to refrain from alcohol for the time being. I do want to get into shape and lose some weight, so I go swimming every morning. He caught a nasty cold because he stayed up late last night. The surgeon persuaded him to undergo an organ transplant. Since our father is bedridden, we take turns looking after him. Our hypothesis is that eating excessive amounts of junk food contributes to early mortality. The government did not take appropriate measures to prevent the infection from spreading. The minister was obliged to resign from the cabinet.
Section 28. Many people regard the current compulsory education system as being obsolete. Many people encouraged me to fulfill my ambitions. To make his dreams come true, he dropped out of school and made his way to Tokyo. What do you do?
I'm a college student, a freshman at Harvard.
What's your major?
Philosophy.
Tuition will be raised by nearly 10% as of April 1, 2001. I am of two minds whether to apply for the scholarship or not.
Give it a try.
As soon as he graduated from Keio University, he took over his family's business. You aren't cut out for the military because of its rigid discipline. I am determined to make a living as a playwright at all costs. As he grew up, he learned to put things in perspective. Conformity is an essential element of our homogeneous community.
I'd rather go my own way than toil away for a company. Trying to fit into a mold gets me nowhere.
Tom takes after his uncle in personality. I mean, he is obstinate by nature. He never gives in.
Section 29. When the time is ripe, be bold and go for it. I'll stand by you. I'll stand up for what I believe in and won't yield to any threats. If only I could conquer my weaknesses.
It's up to you.
You should make the most of this rare opportunity to demonstrate your talent. You won't let me down. I have great faith in you. You can make it. The spectators were moved by her graceful performance. In 1995, Ando received architecture's most prestigious award. In the face of adversity, Mike accomplished an extraordinary feat. He deserves praise. The audience was impressed by his eloquent lecture. From a humble background, John achieved worldwide fame. He accumulated a tremendous fortune during the post-war era. He used to be well off and generous, but now he lives from hand to mouth.
Section 30. Nick is by no means satisfied with the reward. He is selfish and greedy. You owe me $200 altogether, Bob. When are you going to pay me back?
I'm sorry, I'm hard up.
There you go again. To Brian's surprise, his debt amounted to a considerable sum. Stop clinging to your glory days, or you'll be left behind. You cannot escape from today's harsh realities, so you must adapt to them. Prosperity does not last forever. In other words, it will come to an end one of these days. Proper qualifications are required for the position. Computer literacy is a must. Enclose your resume in this envelope and submit it to the personnel department. It's optimistic of you to believe that things will work out. At best, there's a 50-50 chance. Registration forms can be obtained free of charge. Please give us a call now if you want to participate in the workshop. For further inquiries, please feel free to contact us toll-free at 1-800-555-1212.
Section 31.
How's it going, Bob?
Couldn't be better. I did well in my job interview.
Good for you.
He gave instructions to the trainees, but they couldn't make heads or tails of them. You can't do two things at one time. It's out of the question. Do them one by one. Bob, don't disturb her. Mind your own business, he whispered. If you persist in bothering her like that, she'll lose her temper. He was so childish that he couldn't resist temptation. Stop making a fuss. It really gets on my nerves, she shouted. There's no point in talking back to Nick. He is a dictator, so to speak. They are very polite in his presence, but actually, they always talk about him behind his back. You despise Nick, don't you?
On the contrary, I look up to him.
His constant insults aroused her anger.
I'm fed up with just shuffling papers and pouring coffee. I've made up my mind to quit.
In reality, many people have difficulty making ends meet. How can you get by on 100,000 yen a month? Female clerks may well complain about their routines, which are not challenging at all. Thanks to a fundamental restructuring, our surplus has swelled threefold. Many people today think of loyalty to a company as an absurd notion. I have to commute all the way from a distant suburb. I'm sick of it.
Section 32. I want to spend the rest of my life pursuing my ideals. After retirement, Teresa devoted herself to caring for orphans. For the sake of children in need, we cooperated to collect donations. The charity is named after a man who gave away some 2 billion yen. His autobiography was released today and was sold out by noon. Ted, who is often referred to as a man of integrity, is going to run for mayor. The candidate was disappointed by the outcome of the election. The municipal council should concentrate more on specific issues. It is the case that those who live on a pension are forced to lead a hard life. We should leave out this data. It's far from accurate.
Section 33. We tend to associate politicians with hypocrisy. They are primarily concerned with exploiting us, not with enhancing our living standards. The man once exerted a dominant influence on the Conservative Party, but now his power is diminishing. The spokesperson refused to make any comment, saying it's under investigation. The police say there's someone pulling strings behind the scenes. The executives entertain the bureaucrats at ryote, or exclusive Japanese restaurants, hoping for something in return. His secretary flatly denied leaking any confidential information. No one dares to contradict his or her employer for fear of being fired. He sacrificed his promising career to retain his dignity. I might as well kill myself as reconcile myself to my fate. He was about to commit suicide by swallowing poison when he thought better of it.
Section 34. The vague rumor proved to be false. Nevertheless, some skepticism lingers on. A senior official is suspected of accepting bribes from a company, but there isn't sufficient evidence to arrest him. Jason, who was in charge of the project, was dismissed for corruption. To my knowledge, he has not been involved in the fraud scheme. They found out the truth while examining a pile of relevant documents. During the trial, it came to light that they had been covering up illegal transactions for decades. The detective took down his testimony on the spot, word for word. For the first time in my life, I felt a pang of conscience, but there was no other way out. I'm still haunted by a vivid nightmare I had last night. By and large, reporters don't hesitate to intrude on one's privacy. The author revised his manuscript over and over again, He is second to none when it comes to finding fault with others. On the whole, the elite are not sensitive to criticism. When a tabloid revealed that he was a drug addict, his reputation was all but ruined. They considered every aspect of the defense program and pointed out numerous flaws.
Section 35. We will not tolerate anyone who engages in terrorism. The notorious rebel was ultimately captured and confined to jail. Troops were swiftly called in to put down the riot. We should appeal to reason instead of resorting to violence. I suggest we adopt flexible tactics for the moment. The armed forces succeeded in occupying the entire territory. Under the circumstances, the enemy has no choice but to surrender. They can't hold out any longer. Sooner or later, the hostages will be set free. Under the reign of tyranny, innocent people were deprived of their citizenship. Some soldiers were reluctant to obey the commands. His regime is bound to collapse. The Allies condemned the invasion as a violation of UN resolutions. We cannot rule out the possibility that civil war will break out in that country. The colony declared independence and became a republic.
Section 36. An immense monument was erected in honor of the noble patriot. He got down on his knees and prayed for the souls of the deceased. The Supreme Court is located near the Imperial Palace. The pro-choice group protested against the ban on abortion. Senator Ford remained neutral in the bitter controversy. Ford has been in a difficult situation all week long. He is no longer capable of coping with it. The summit talks are to be broadcast simultaneously throughout the world. Diplomatic dialogue helped put an end to the conflict. Johnson was appointed as a goodwill ambassador to foster mutual understanding between the two nations. The specialist predicts international tension will build up. In my opinion, permanent peace is nothing but an illusion. Ethnic minorities struggle against prejudice, poverty, and oppression. We must make every effort to do away with all discrimination. The immigrants have endured physical and mental pain. The amendment was rejected because it didn't take racial diversity into account. Needless to say, the refugees were longing for freedom.
Section 37. According to a survey, 3 in 5 people today are indifferent to foreign affairs. What will become of Japan-U.S. relations if the security treaty expires? Unless Japan eliminates its unfair tariffs, the U.S. will impose sanctions. Trade friction might arise between the two nations at any moment. Our top priority is to settle this dispute once and for all, so we are ready to meet them halfway. The federal budget was narrowly approved by Congress. He argues that the administration must look for alternative sources of revenue. A poll shows that an overwhelming majority is in favor of the legislation.
Section 38. The cops are searching for clues to the brutal murder. The man must be insane. He can't distinguish vice from virtue. The fingerprints left on the weapon correspond with the suspects. It took us all by surprise when the noted psychologist was accused of kidnapping. The jury's guilty verdict gave rise to widespread debate. The man pleaded for mercy, but he was sentenced to 20 years in prison for his crime. The officer on duty perceived an elderly man coming up behind him. He caught sight of a thief attempting to break into the house. The day before yesterday, he witnessed a weird incident in the wilderness.
Section 39.
I became aware of someone staring at me from across the aisle, so I turned around. But there was no one in sight.
She screamed with horror as someone took hold of her arm. Informed of her safety, he breathed a sigh of relief. The bullet penetrated his chest, leaving him in critical condition. At present, it's still uncertain whether it was done deliberately or by accident. A deli caught fire and burned down, leaving a heap of ashes. All of a sudden, the fireworks warehouse exploded, and it took 2 days to put out the blaze. A bomb went off in a 30-story building, and more than 50 people were seriously wounded. A cargo vessel bound for Athens sank in the Mediterranean without a trace. The reckless men froze to death during their expedition to the Antarctic. The tragedy must be remembered so as not to be repeated.
Section 40. The exhibition offers profound insights into ancient civilization. Giotto is credited with sowing the seeds of the Italian Renaissance. Bob mounted the portrait in a fancy frame, but it was upside down. This magnificent cathedral dates back to the Middle Ages. Asian religions inspired him to create splendid sculptures. They explored the desert in search of buried treasure. The millionaire insisted on acquiring the masterpiece no matter how much it cost. Myths and legends should be handed down from generation to generation. The linguist is fluent in several Chinese dialects. The tribe worships its ancestors and speaks its own language, which is not familiar to us. The anthropologist says old customs still prevail in the province. The wicked witch cast an evil spell on the man and turned him into a bug. They proceeded along the steep path, which was the sole access to the border. When a big ape emerged from the cave, they got frightened and ran away. Believe it or not, I saw an alien, and then it vanished.
Give me a break. Section 41. Quite a few people have been invited to celebrate the couple's anniversary. It won't be long before everything is ready. In the meantime, help yourself to some snacks. Dressed in a loud and peculiar outfit, she stood out in the crowd. All the guests were touched by her hospitality. Her shabby clothes were not suitable for the occasion. That topic is too intimate to share with casual acquaintances. When Tom gets drunk, he gets crude and offensive. Stay away from him. He could hardly comprehend what she was implying. Bob felt embarrassed when he was teased in front of some girls. His ambiguous reply made her all the more irritated. Bob is very timid and blushes when chatting with girls. Nick looks down on anyone who comes from a rural area.
What's the matter, Bob? You look so miserable.
Leave me alone. It's none of your business. Although Bob was in disguise, I recognized him at a glance. What are you chuckling about?
Bob, you have your sweatshirt on backwards.
Oops.
Section 42. He is not good at making friends and always keeps to himself. Having found no place he felt he belonged, he was extremely uneasy and lonely. I found it pretty hard to adjust to my new surroundings. I felt utterly out of place among those sophisticated people. To tell the truth, I don't like classical music. On the other hand, Molly is really into it. Bob derives pleasure from observing insects. How about playing cards or something for a change?
Sorry, I'm not up for it.
After you.
No, please, you go ahead.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
His niece is sociable and mature for her age. She could pass for 20-something. Take care of yourself and say hi to your family for me.
I will. See you later.
I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Sincerely.
Section 43. Can you spare a minute? I'd like to discuss something of importance to both of us. It may seem trivial to you, but for me it's worth paying attention to. As far as Bob is concerned, anything goes. By contrast, Jane is very cautious. After an awkward pause, Bill took her by the hand and dragged her upstairs. Bill just wanted to comfort Monica, but she interpreted it as romantic interest. After making sure she was sound asleep, he crept out of the room and set off. Between you and me, Lisa, I came across Nick passionately embracing a woman. Such a remark is open to misunderstanding.
I can't stand it anymore.
Calm down. I'll come over as soon as possible. Don't take it literally. He is inclined to exaggerate.
You should apologize to Lisa for making fun of her. You went too far this time.
Yeah, I will. Sometime when she's in a better mood. Lisa, are you getting along with Nick?
Once in a while, I think of divorcing him.
You must be kidding. In tears, she tore up his letter and threw it away.
Section 44.
Jennifer deceived me.
You should have known better than to trust her. Tom regretted having wasted a great deal of his life. I cannot look back on my adolescence without feeling depressed.
Jennifer left me for another guy.
Oh, you must be upset.
Not really. I'm used to it. No wonder she didn't show up to see him off.
How come?
They broke up.
Oh, what a pity. Living here all by myself is torture, he sobbed. To be honest, I'm crazy about Ken because he's brave, self-confident, and never afraid of taking risks. If I were you, I'd ask him out.
I've been going with Jennifer on and off for ages.
You're as indecisive as ever. Isn't it about time you settled down?
It dawned on me that I had been taken in by Jennifer all along.
How naive. Didn't you see through her?
Even though she is seeing someone else, I won't give her up. Hi, Jane. What's up?
Not much. How about you?
I got married to Jennifer.
Wow, congratulations! Whenever you're in trouble or feeling down, I'll be there for you. Delight is the opposite of sorrow.
Jennifer went so far as to call me an idiot, and she wouldn't take it back.
Serves you right. You provoked her, didn't you? Why do you put up with her arrogance? She's just taking advantage of you.
Shut up.
Take your time. I know you need a couple of days to reflect on it. Bob has to get through this ordeal on his own.
Section 45. Flies and mosquitoes interfered with his meditation. The sacred ritual took place after being postponed twice. All at once, the Buddhist priest burst into laughter, spoiling the solemn atmosphere. Cover your mouth when you cough, sneeze, or yawn. One of her relatives passed away 3 days ago.
Oh, that's too bad. I'm so sorry.
Besides attending the funeral, she needs to make all the arrangements. I feel for you, Jane. Grief doesn't fade away quickly.
I'm okay. I'll get over it.
She cherishes the precious memories of her childhood. Speaking of Jennifer, she got engaged to a businessman.
I'm at a loss for words. I hope she won't break it off.
These days, the motives for marriage are not necessarily pure. Take Jennifer, for example. Go easy on Bob. You know he's been going through a rough period recently.
By the way, do you have the time?
Let's see. It's 7:45.
Let's call it a day, Bob. I'm starved.
Yep, I'll buy you dinner.